I want to share really quickly how you can take some ingredients and your slow cooker and make a quick tomato sauce. So I heat up the crock pot first. I'm just using the small one today because I only have a small amount of tomatoes to use up. And I put some olive oil in the bottom. And then to that I added some onions. These actually came out of the freezer, so there's some juice in there as they're thawing. But you caramelize those, stir them around and caramelize them. And then to that, I'm going to add some garlic. I don't have fresh garlic on hand, but I have a friend who takes his garlic from the previous season and roasts it and makes it into this really wonderful powder. So then I just use an old garlic container so we know what it is, because we have a lot of spices and seasonings and stuff here and both in the pantry, and I don't want to get it mixed up. So this is fresh dried garlic from my friend, and then I'm going to add some of that. Stir it around. And then I'm also going to add some herbs from my garden. I was really lazy this year and I didn't actually harvest my herbs. And so they actually stay outside all winter and they essentially get freeze dried when the frost hits them. I've done this before and it works really great. So I have some thyme, oregano, rosemary, sage, and a little bit of basil crushed in the bottom too. It's pretty much the end of my basil. I'm not going to worry about pulling these off the stems because at the end, once I'm all done making this, I'm going to throw it through a food mill, and I can show you that process too. And that strains out all the seeds and the other stuff, so I don't have to worry about big pieces because this sauce is going to get strained at the end. And then I'll let that cook down for a little bit and get kind of aromatic. And then to that, I'm going to add my tomatoes. So usually what I do during the growing season is my tomatoes don't come on all at once, so I will wash them and freeze them in Ziploc bags. And then once I have enough, I take them out of the freezer and the skins squeeze off really nicely. These are actually fresh tomatoes that were not perfect. They're a little bit wrinkly. I don't know if you can see. So they weren't okay to serve, but I'm going to make them into a sauce because they'll be perfect for a sauce. So this has sat for a little bit here and it's starting to smell nice. I could do it for longer, but it's going to continue to cook with the tomatoes too. So then to that, this is very fun to do with one hand, by the way. To that, I'm just going to add all my tomatoes. When I'm doing a big batch of tomato sauce, I'll use my Nesco. But like I said, since I only have a small lot today, I'm using my little dipper crock pot. And then I'm just going to let this sit. That's basically it. Now I'm going to put the lid on. I have it on high, and I'm going to be going to work for a couple hours. So when I get home in a few hours, I'll check on it and I'll stir it. There's enough liquid in the bottom, and these will release enough liquid that nothing's going to burn. I will let this go until it gets to the thickness I want, and then strain it off, and it basically is ready to can or freeze or use at that point. So really quick, nice hack for not using a lot of electricity and a lot of time, but to make a really nice, flavorful product. So we'll check back in on this later today. Okay, so this has sat for about 6 hours. I stirred it once already. The bummer about doing the leave it alone method is you can't stir it as often. So normally at the point where it's boiling like this and the skins burst, I would stir it, which is going to help it break down much quicker. But I didn't do that, so they were kind of sitting on top. So this is going to take a little bit longer than normal, but that's okay. It'll still work. And then I will take a potato masher and I'm going to crush any of the ones that the juice hasn't quite come out of the skins yet. Ooh, steam. This is also going to get it down into the juicy part, which is going to accelerate the cooking. Remember I said I'm going to strain this, so it's okay if there's skin and seeds and herbs in here. Mash that really good. Make sure they're all kind of burst. And keep cooking it on high. Just check back on it periodically. And it is ready to strain whenever the flavor and the thickness is to your liking. So that's good. We'll come back and check on it later today. Okay, so my sauce is done. It's all cooked down. Looks like mash, essentially. So now I'm going to use my food mill, which is this handy dandy little contraption, to separate the pulp from the sauce. There are interchangeable little grates that go on the bottom of different sizes. I'm using the finest one because I want a finer sauce. And then you put the mash in the top, put it on top of your container with these guys, and then you crank the top. Kind of hard to do with one hand. And it pushes your sauce down through, forces it through the holes, and then the stuff comes out the other side. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so this batch is done. You crank it. Again, very hard to do with one hand. You crank it one direction and it pushes it through the sieve. And then if you back up, it will like remove it from the metal part. I don't know if you can see this. And then it pulls it up from the metal, and then you can run it back through the other way so you can get more juice out. So here's the bit of juice sauce that I've extracted from there. And then the top part is great for feeding like chickens or pigs, which we don't have. So you can also take this mash and you can like dehydrate it or freeze dry it and grind it into a powder, excuse me, and it's good for adding to soups or whatever. So I'm gonna try that this time because I've never done that before. Okay, so here is the finished product of my sauce. It's nice and thick and chunky. I did forget to mention that you do have to scrape the bottom of the food mill with a spatula or some other utensil to get the thicker pulp particles off, because the juice falls through nicely, but sometimes the pulp clings to the bottom. And then here's all the not dehydrated, but here's all the skins and stems and stuff from the herbs. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to dehydrate that. I'll probably try freeze drying some and then try dehydrating some too, and just to compare the results and see what I get. But so then this is the point where you would taste your sauce and add any seasoning if you want, or if you would like it thicker, you'd cook it down a little bit more. You could put it back in your crock pot to do that. I like the consistency and the flavor is pretty good, but I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper. So I've got those standing by there. And then it's ready to use as is. Or you can can it up at this point. Obviously, if you're going to can it, you wouldn't let it sit all day like I did to cool down, but you would keep it at a boiling temperature and then can it, or you can freeze it or use it however you want. I don't have a huge amount here, so I'm probably just going to end up using this fresh. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed my little tutorial. I am unapologetically Amanda. See you later.